Welcome to William Steele, True Crime and Steele Spotlight TV. Now we have my co-host Ignacio Esteban, retired ATF agent, back again.
Hey,
Ignacio,
buddy.
and we have special guest Frank Lordi, author of Framed Innocence. This is a politician who did all the right things and still went to prison, and he's an innocent man trying to clear his name. And Frank, thank you so much for joining our show this morning.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Bill.
Thanks. All right. So we're going to get into some topics like, for example, we're going to discuss the presidential debate between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom, governor of California, who can't seem to keep his story straight, got caught in a bunch of lies during the debate. The two murder arrest finally after decades. Evidently, the guy had some kind of official protection.
27 years. Unbelievable, Bill. 27 years.
Ignacio wrote a book about that, which the link will be in the description. Frank's book link will be in the description as well. And we're going to get into mass shooting. I believe there was a mass shooting in Las Vegas.
Yeah, UNLV, another one. It's becoming a weekly occurrence out here. These guys get triggered, and unfortunately, it always goes back to the same issue, mental health issue. We have a mental health crisis in this country, and we have to resolve. We don't have a gun problem. We have a mental health issue because a lot of these guys legally buy their weapons, and unfortunately, they get triggered by something. And this is another case we'll talk more about what happened. It could have been a lot worse. He was ready to do like another Cho did in Virginia Tech, loaded with magazines, and he was ready to kill. And of course, Las Vegas had the worst mass shooting in U.S. history in 2017 with Stephen Paddock. Still over 60 dead on that one. So unfortunately, Las Vegas does have that trend there. But we'll talk more about that too, Bill.
So we have, Ignacio and I have been doing some political shows in the lead up to the presidential election, and we make no bones about it. We are conservative Republican, and unfortunately, I don't think I can vote. I'm not sure yet, so we'll see, because I'm a convicted felon. But Frank here was a politician and elected official, and he knows all about political corruption because he was targeted by corrupt public officials. And so, Frank, what do you have to say about what's going on with Hunter Biden and this Biden administration, all the corruption there?
What I got to say, are you asking me, Bill?
Absolutely.
Bill, are you asking? Okay, there's no doubt he's corrupt as hell. Excuse my language. But this has been going on for months and months. And finally, the House opened up the investigation where they had enough votes to do an inquiry into this situation. Believe it or not, they had a hard time getting enough conservative votes to go forward. And they're going to do the same thing with the impeachment inquiry of the president. But they have to have enough votes. They think they have enough votes now based on what the leadership in the House is presenting, the evidence they got from offshore accounts and wire transfers to the Biden family. They've got all this stuff, and it's got to come out in public, and it will absolutely, I believe, destroy what the other side is trying to do. When I say the other side, the Democratic Party is trying to do, as them in the media is shielding the president of the United States. And it's a joke. And I'm not afraid to tell it like it is, because I that's the way I call it. And it's unfortunate. But when this stuff comes out, the media is going to have to break their silence on this stuff, because it's going to be overwhelming. And when an impeachment hearing of the president, that will bring out the international media. When you're talking about a president, what's going to force our media to cover, and then maybe the naysayers, let's talk about the uninformed voters that don't get that information from those radio sites, will finally have a chance to see what evidence is there that it is true. Same with the party on the other side of the aisle in the House of Representatives, who are still denying that the border is open, and we know it is. And that's why the president or Kamala won't go down there, because the press follows them down, and they'd see it. It is what it is there in Arizona, two big places, letting thousands and thousands, now some millions of people coming in that we don't know who they are, who they're tied to, who they're with.
That's true.
And it's a nightmare. And finally, the FBI has admitted in a hearing that we've got some more serious issues now than we had 2 years ago under Trump, believe it or not. And it's true.
Yeah, no, I agree. They got to continue off that. They got to finish the wall, right? He flip-flopped. Right? This administration has flip-flopped on that. First, they said not one more inch. Remember, Joe Biden said not one more, and now he realized the backlash, and now he says, no, wait, now we got to. Oh, the money's already been spent. Yeah, we got to finish the wall. He's the master flip flopper, is what he's become now. He knows it's costing him, and he said he wouldn't run, but he thinks he can beat Trump. I think it's ridiculous. He shows at his level. He cannot even speak anymore. He can't walk. He can't talk. He's pretty much a puppet, and the puppet masters control him. And his saving grace is Kamala Harris. They're both, like I said, a big word salad. They talk in circles. Nobody really understands what they're saying. I understand his excuse. I don't figure out what her excuse is yet. So it's a big problem, this administration. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. With RFK Jr. Oh, Frank, I'll let you. With RFK Jr. here now in the mix, because of what they did to him, the Democratic Party. We talked about this corruption with RFK Jr. What's going on? Not letting him debate him, not letting him campaign and get the votes he needs in Iowa and New Hampshire. He forced his hand to go independent. And as an independent now, he said, no incumbent presidents won. Was a strong third-party candidate. Anderson did it to Carter. Perot did it to Bush. And now you'll see RFK Jr. and maybe Joe Manchin now with no labels party, which is throw himself in the ring also to hit Biden also hard. So I think he's a one and done, like my book, Bill, one and done. Joe Biden is a one and done president, and rightfully so. He's disgraced. He's a mess, especially after he's starting to bask after Afghanistan, the disgrace of exit Afghanistan with service members being killed. 13 members of them have the Taliban doing security. The lack of crime is high in this country in many places. And then you have also the border, foreign policy weaknesses. He's definitely a done one. And inflation. And we don't even talk about inflation, how bad inflation in this country, and the prices keep on going higher and higher. So I see him as a one and done president. What do you think, Bill?
Absolutely. I see the country's in a not just poor condition because of Biden. It's an unmitigated disaster. I have never seen a party, or I've never dreamed. There's one thing to have political differences. There's another thing to have your corruption so far reaching and your indifference towards this country so far reaching that you cater to our enemies, you cater to terrorists, you allow people to come in illegally. Border agents are committing suicide and not able to work. They're in danger. Their lives are in danger. They're overrun at the border. He's putting the lives of law enforcement and good officers in danger who are really trying to make a difference and trying to earn a paycheck and go home to their families. And they're being shot at from across the border. They're being at risk of touching fentanyl and dying of overdoses and all these things that happen. I saw where there's a big portion of fence that they had taken a blowtorch to,
Yes.
and there was people just filing through it. And then one of the coyote guys obviously had a mask on and some black camo. He basically waved at the cameras and went back the other way for another group from the other side of the border. I've seen so many
It's sad.
disgusting videos, millions, tens of millions of dollars into the Biden family. At what stage is this okay? And then all the things going on with the universities protesting, supporting Hamas in Palestine.
On topic there, yeah.
The Palestinians people, for the most part, support. I call them Hamas. I got shut down. I didn't tell you this. I got shut down from Instagram yesterday because I kept posting up there calling Hamas.
That's a good name. That's a good name for them. They are terrorists, so no need to call them by their right name. But
Right.
I like that the president from University of Pennsylvania, UPenn, stepped down because she couldn't answer the question in the congressional hearing, rightfully saying, condemning. That's not kind of speech protest we're going to have on our campus here, supporting a terrorist organization. They're not a resistant group. They're a terrorist group. And that's how they should be treated and not be accepted. So, and it's pretty much anti-Semitic. She was pretty much supporting genocide.
Didn't they ask the 3 university Ivy League presidents, is it constitute genocide if they're doing what they're doing? Do you support the speech on your campus and harassing the Jewish students, scaring them to death, threatening their lives? And they're like, it depends on the context. They all had the same canned answer, which involved the word depends on context. If you look up the word genocide, there's no proper context for it ever against any group. It's universally condemned. You don't commit genocide.
The female president had to resign. She had to resign from UPenn. So that's good pressure. That's a good start. And you know what? And a lot of people from alumni contributors are taking back their contributions to universities.
Good. I would pull my kids out of there too if I had them going to Ivy League.
Exactly. It's not worth the money. Absolutely not.
They're teaching them to hate
Bill,
the United States.
There's another guy in politics who definitely should be brought before the committees and should have been censored and removed. And that is the Director of Homeland Security, who is on numerous occasions under oath saying that the border is secure, by the name of Mayorkas.
Mayorkas, yeah.
It's horrible. How could he get away with saying that And 8, I want you guys to know this, in the House a week or two ago in for a hearing. Now, I think maybe since the last couple of weeks, maybe they've changed their sides. Hopefully they are. But the big hang-up's going to be is the president of Ukraine is in D.C. and he's crying. He needs more money. But the House, the conservative side of the House is saying, if we're going to give him more money, we want money in that budget for the border control.
For the border. Absolutely. Absolutely. I do support the war in Ukraine for having the Ukrainian independence or independent people, sovereignty, because Putin, I wrote a book about it, and we talked about Putin before in other shows. He's a brutal dictator. Atrocities committed. He's a war criminal. He's been indicted by The Hague. And obviously, we hope that Russia one day can be a free democracy. The people deserve to have freedom to really have, they don't have true elections. This is a scam, what's going on in Russia right now and all that. And just like in Xi Jinping in China, that's a dictatorship over there, communist dictatorship. Putin used to be a communist, obviously, fall Soviet Union. He's just a dictator who likes a lot of money. He likes his billion-dollar palace, and he steals from his people at what expense. But at the end, we can't fund all the wars, right? Our tax dollars keeps on. We go higher and higher. What's the end game? And right now, can they win, get that region? If not, then maybe they have to come up with truth, because we just can't be funding endless wars. We had one in Afghanistan for 20 years. Iraq still going on. We have to come up with an end. That's where I see that point there. Okay, we're going to help you, but where does this end? And if you can't win this war,
I want to interject one thing
real
to
quick,
what you
Frank.
just said
And
about,
if you can't win this, yeah, go ahead. We're having a little lag
what I
here.
want to interject is one thing. You're right about all those things you just said. However, there needs to be accountability, how the money is being applied and where it's going. We just can't keep feeding them at the trough, and we don't know where all this money's going. That's what the public wants to see. Some accountability of the millions and now billions that were given to them. That's great. We need to help them. And I agree with you what you say.
Yeah, because if it's today's Ukraine, tomorrow it could be Eastern Europe. And then it's our NATO allies. And then we're looking at World War III, and he is a nuclear power. So we have to keep him in check. And hopefully one day Ukraine can become a NATO ally, part of NATO, and protected. But if they can't win this war, and we're helping them as much as they can, especially in the Donbas region and other parts there in Crimea, where is this going to go? Because they're really entrenched there hard, and it feels like it's a stalemate in that area. Then they have to come up with a plan, because it's already been going in the second, third year. Then how much longer we're going to go in this war? So we have to come up with a plan. Maybe more of an independent region. There could be some other idea. And I know the history there. The Russians are a lot of Russians there also. It's not simple. There's a lot of dynamics there where we're going to have to work something out. But the solution is, at the end, we just can't really, as you said, Frank, keep on feeding them billions. I think we're over 60 billion, close to maybe 80 billion already, and counting. That's a lot. And we already have $36 trillion debt. We're just going to keep an eye to our national debt. And that's another thing we have to work on. And we got the Republicans, but we really don't work on really shrinking our national debt. It just keeps on growing. And that's something we have to work on to also do it, to make our economy stronger. Because if not, next generation is just going to get straddled like ours did, with a bigger and bigger debt. And that's very important for us as national security. We have to do something with our national debt also. Republicans don't want to. They're very hawkish, but sometimes at the end, they don't on that. So what do you think about that, Bill?
Just think, if all these billions of dollars spent supposedly helping, maybe making things worse, prolonging things, if even $1 billion of that was spent right here at home, helping the homeless, putting up shelters all across the United States, training for them, drug treatment, mental health counseling, how much of an impact can you make in this country just to help people that really need it? And our money's going overseas to buy bombs and weapons, and it's financing the industrial complex of weaponization of humanity, just to kill other human beings. It's just disgusting. If you noticed, Putin comes from a KGB background, so he has not beyond assassinating political enemies all over the world wherever he finds them by any means possible. And there was instances with radioactive material and different things. Even in the last day, there was an article that his number one political rival in Russia has now disappeared.
Yeah, that just came out. I mean, and he killed the other guy who tried to. Remember, with military, with Wagner Security, right? He tried to do a coup, and his plane crashed a few months ago. He shot it down with their plane. So he shows no mercy. If you're a journalist, if you're a political dissident, anybody who opposes him, it's his way or the highway. That's a dictatorship there. And we have to be he's a very dangerous man. He's obviously lost his He was a different person 20 years ago, but gradually after the Chechen war and after all the different conflicts, and now this obsession with Ukraine and becoming a new Russian, he's like a czar. He's a new Russian czar because he's not a communist. The guy loves money. The guy lives this certain lifestyle, nothing like what the Soviets had. This guy, it's a new age Russian czar that wants to complete control and return have power. Hopefully, he's another Stalin, and hopefully with time, his end comes quickly, and he ends up being in Siberia in a small cell where he deserves to be, as he treats other people who are good people who stand up against him. He's the worst thing that we have posed, and he's a threat to us and our national security, no doubt about it, just like Xi Jinping is. Both those guys are pure evil. Even though he came in San Francisco, you see how we did a show about this, Bill, the corruption with the CCP a few weeks ago, how quickly Gavin Newsom cleaned up, we'll talk about now in the debate, the streets of San Francisco with the homeless and put up the communist flags up there for the parade for this guy. You see that. And then what do you, Frank, what did you think? I know we talked a little about, what did you think of the debate between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom?
I believe that Newsom is a slick politician. He'll say what he has to say. And I did see how they cleaned up the streets, but I can guarantee if you go back there now and the media will follow up on that, they'd see it back the way it was. It's horrible. It's horrendous. And it's so far left. I don't get it. Then he makes this trip to China like he's the good guy. And he wants to be the guy, the go-to guy if this stuff in our country falls through the cracks, of course. And that's what it looks like, because they're not buying with Kamala. Because Kamala didn't, I tore him up in the debates when she was in debates against Biden. And so therefore, he put her in. And one of the first things he did for her, made her the border czar, because he knew what it was like down there. And she never even went down there. I seen her with an interview, and she's saying, oh, yeah, I've been to the televised interview she had, it was either 60 Minutes or one of the big stores, said, oh, yeah, I've been in Europe and this and that. And basically, he says, I asked you if you were at the border. And they just covered it up. It's a joke.
She's a walking, forgive my language.
She's a major word salad. She just goes in circles and you don't know what she's saying. You can go to a dictionary and read random words and it makes more sense than what she says.
She excuse my language, but she's a walking, living, breathing idiot. And I think when they appointed her border czar, she thought they said bourbon czar.
Yeah, that's funny. That's pretty
I like
good.
that, Bill.
Yeah, and if you look at the debate, I think DeSantis really cleaned house with Gavin Newsom there. He had some California is the great escape. The great escape. Everybody's trying to get out there. High taxes. You got inflation hard. And then on top of that, gun control is, and we'll roll into this, how crucial Florida. I'm from Florida originally. I've lived many years. I worked there with ATF. I was in Miami and Tampa and every difference where it's a gun culture to protect yourself, family. California, even now with a concealed weapons permit, they ban it from you going anywhere in public with your own weapons. So the bad guys, the criminals, the gang members, which is infested, Los Angeles, San Francisco, gang infested, they know that good people who don't want to cop a gun charge are not going to have a weapon with them because they don't want to be arrested for having a firearm. But guess what? The gang members don't care. The criminals don't care. They don't follow laws. So this is equal. This is the victimization of the people in California who can't protect themselves, which is horrible. So that's another reason people, you can't have weapons. Crime is out of control. Inflation is out of control. Taxes are out of control out there. Homeless out of control. Corruption's out of control. Why would you want to stay there? It makes no sense. People are leaving in droves out of there. Industries are leaving. So it is a great state that has had better days. It's not the days of Ronald Reagan anymore. It's a great state with Ronald Reagan when he was governor, then Nixon. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger tried his best to improve that state. But now with Newsom, they've had some real doozies in California. Doozies.
Ignacio, let me add to you what we did in Ohio. Let me tell you what our governor did in Ohio. He made it so that the good people could carry guns.
Good.
Made it open that they can get guns. And I'm thinking their philosophy must have been bad guys are carrying guns. The good guys aren't going out killing anybody, but they might be able to save by having that opportunity to carry weapons. And I thought that was pretty smart of him to do that. But let me get back to the DeSantis, as you were saying. I want you to give you a little statistic about him. First time he ran, I believe he ran for Congress and he lost. Second time he ran for governor and he won
2018,
by 35,000 votes. Now he gets in, puts in his policies in place. The second time he ran, I think he ran by over 20 points or over 1 million votes. So what did he do to change Florida to make it that much more popular state now that a lot of people from California are moving down there?
Want to come? Yeah, open for business, right? Florida's open for business. It's a very pro-business state, and he kept it open during COVID. And I remember living through that, and then moved to Virginia. But it's important to keep it. He didn't get brainwashed and snowed in with the idea you have to shut everything down. If you're sick and you're vulnerable, you have pre-existing condition, obviously you stay home. But strong, healthy people, it was obvious, could function and have no issues with it, with or without the shot. It was ridiculous. The policies you saw in the blue state. Look at the economies in the blue states and red states. What a difference. How strong. The ones in the red state open, blue states, there's still New York, a disaster. Escape from New York. And everybody from New York, from Cuomo and his failed policies, also came down to Florida. So the failed states from the blue, Illinois, out there in New York, the Northeast, everybody's coming down because people know they can't live like that. Obviously, the economies, the business. If you're a small business person and you had a restaurant, you lost everything. It's horrible to see how all these people lost everything because of these failed policies, and they don't care, and they keep on raising taxes, but yet they'll give the money away to other groups of people they feel need it, which are going to waste the money on other things. That's no way to go.
How do the Democrats even convince people to vote for them anymore? You can't hide anything these days. Everything comes out in the open eventually, right? From cameras and mics and the truth and this and that, and your lies can be found out pretty much instantaneously. How in the world, with all their failed policies, lies they continually tell about their successes and people like Biden and Gavin Newsom have completely destroyed not only a state but the country, demonstrably so. Literally, their policies have done it, and they'll just lie and say, "Oh, it was Trump," and everything was booming under Trump. I don't understand whether you don't like him personally. The economy was booming under Trump. Why do people believe these lies and just keep voting for these people? I know a lot of people are leaving the Democratic Party because they're so disgusted with the high crime and the lies and all that negativity.
And the corruption, Bill, and the corruption of the Democratic Party. Very, very corrupt. At least to Republicans, and we'll transition this to George Santos here. At least they did the right thing here. They stepped up where you don't see that with Tlaib. They just censured her. Congresswoman Tlaib out there supporting pretty much Hamas, a terrorist group, and her statements from the river to the sea, right, which is pretty much the genocide elimination of Israel, her chanting that, also putting her videos and commercials, disgraceful conduct by her. She should be removed, just like Omar, and we talked about the Jihad Squad, her, Omar, AOC, and others, Cory Buescher, and there's just so many involved, and the corruption there, and they're extremists. All right, Jorge Santos, Republicans to get over 100 voted to expel him. Only the sixth one in history. He's corrupt. He was misusing campaign findings and for his own personal gain. He was pretty much lied about his background. His family were not survivors of the Holocaust, right? He lied about everything, his employment, his schooling. Everything was a lie, and he used everything in power to get Botox done, had all designer clothing, went to Las Vegas. Everything was a scheme to improve his life. And of course, he was famously dressed in Rio de Janeiro as a drag queen, and that whole crazy lifestyle that he lived, which is something else within itself. This is who Jorge Santos was, and the Republican Party stepped up and did the right thing after the committee investigated him. And guess what? We found more, and they gave it to the FBI and the IRS. Look what else we found about this guy. So he is going to do some serious time. This guy is probably going to do at least 2 or 3 years, which is good where he needs to be, because this is not what we want in Congress, and other ones have to follow also. And this is the precedent right there to others. And then we can also move into Hunter Biden, and I think he's going to get some serious time because of now of not only one indictment, the second one came out, 9 counts on serious tax violations and fraud, over $1.4 million he owes in back taxes, lying about it, using his crack cocaine prostitution lifestyle of his that he was living. And you look at those videos there and what he did. Oh, that disgraceful for the president, the son of the president, to live like that, and what he did and protect him and lie about it. This is a big scandal. This is a big scandal right here.
The hookers told him he didn't have to pay taxes, that they would take care of that for him.
Let's see.
But you know what, Ignacio, exactly what you're saying. You're right on. You got to understand this, and I think you do, and so does Bill. You cannot let the media get away with hiding these facts, because that's what they're doing. That's why I want to see an impeachment of the president, because the international media will come in for those hearings and will force the mainstream media to cover it, because they'd be embarrassed if they're not covering one of the biggest issues that's gone on in our country for quite a while when you impeach a president. What they did to Trump was a joke, a real joke.
Yeah.
But the other thing I want to get
I
back
tell you
to
what.
just in a little bit. Go ahead. The other thing I want to
I
get
saw-
back to in a little bit about the crime bill. Look at the red states
Hmm.
and look at the blue states and look at the crime difference. And
Yeah.
whoever came up with the idea, what a bonehead, let's call it a bonehead procedure that they tried to enforce, was defunding the police. Are you
That's horrible.
kidding me?
That's horrible.
Tell me, is that unbelievable?
People in the inner cities who are victims don't want that. They've said, no, we need
That's
help
right.
out here because they're getting victimized more and more. Nobody wants that. This is a liberal. And these same guys, they fund the police, BLM, Black Lives Matter. Remember, they were supporting Hamas.
Yep.
With the guy who coming in inside, and they said, no, that's unbelievable. It's just domestic terrorist groups. They're just working with each other and supporting each
To
other.
this day, you cannot explain to certain people who refuse to know the truth that BLM is a completely corrupted organization. The founders have all squandered
Yeah.
the money, millions of dollars, bought mansions for themselves, have done nothing to kick back to anybody. It's just a big money grab from their own people. It's just disgraceful.
Yeah. Now, Black Lives Matters has done nothing else but cause us problems after with the riots a couple of years ago in the summer and burned down cities, destroyed businesses out there. And where are they now? Are they really helping inner city people? And any issues going on? No, it's a political organization, weaponization. Now, they'll come back if Trump wins. Let me say that. They went away, right? They've gone to sleep a little bit with Biden to help this administration. Trump wins, or a Republican wins, or let's say RFK Jr. or Joe Manchin wins. They'll be all over again. And any excuse, any police action that they feel that's not acceptable, there's going to be riots again, because that's what they do. And they're going to stir up the pot, and that's what they're going to hit for. They're like an ultra extremist group that spin off from other militant groups in the past. So expect that to happen. If a Republican wins or somebody who's not what they want, then we're gonna see them back again in action, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think charges should be brought against them a long time ago and disband them, because the sentiment is something we all agree with. The underlying people involved and their mission statement and all that is nothing but completely corrupt and criminal. It's basically a criminal organization.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So let's see if we have some accountability. Let's see if there's going to be any accountability. Hunter Biden, I'll be interested in his trial. That's going to be an interesting trial next year. It's going to be a lot of interesting trial. I know Trump has his issues there, but Hunter Biden has his. The possible impeachment inquiry of Joe Biden will be interesting also. There's a lot of political stuff in the works here. Watch out for Santos' trial. I think that's going to be a fascinating one also. The level of corruption with George Santos and how much time he ends up getting. He thinks it's a big joke. He did another press conference again. Remember, he said, "To hell with this place," as he finally left and all that. No, to hell with you and your lies and everything else you've been part of. No, you're going to do some time. You're not going to get away with this, what you thought this was going to be. And I think this sends a good message. And this is strong for the Republican Party. It may hurt a little bit, but it sends a good message that we don't want to tolerate corruption. And Democrats should do the same. This guy was a piece of work.
What's terrible, I think, the level of arrogance with the Bidens, no matter what happens to this guy. He got on a show called Moby, I think it was yesterday, and it was on the news, where Hunter said, they're only coming after me because my father's the president. And they're trying to drive me to hit my grave over this stuff and to kill me, because that's the only way to hurt my father. And I'm thinking, you pathetic human being. You did all this gummy stuff and corrupted your father was probably corrupt to begin with, and you did all this stuff, and then you're getting on there talking about it's only because you're a Biden. Wait a minute, you're charged with tax crimes because you're a criminal, and you had all this money you didn't pay taxes on. Al Capone was prosecuted for the same thing, and not because he was the son of a president, but because that was one way to go after that somebody that they knew who was corrupt and acting as a foreign agent and then taking all this money. That's corruption. The people
and a crackhead. And a known crackhead, a major crackhead.
The problem is his father holds the power of the pardon. He could pardon himself and his son on the last day. And tens of millions of dollars investigating and all this nonsense are for nothing. He's never going to leave without pardoning himself, his family members, and his son. Unfortunately, I hope it doesn't happen, but if he dies in office, his son's going to prison for a long time.
I think Kamala will pardon him too, though. She'll pardon him.
Let me add this to your conversation. Very fortunate for us that a smart judge who heard the case with Hunter Biden with the 2 charges by the special prosecutor appointed by the Attorney General. He's the same leader that's on this case with him now. And he put in a deal that the judge caught on the 2 charges. One was the drug charges and the gun charge. But he put in on the 1 charge a plea deal that he made that they didn't bring forth to the judge, but she asked on her own, is there a deal with the second? Was there a plea agreement on the 2nd charge? And he had to say yes. That agreement, if she didn't catch it, would allowed all the investigations going on about Hunter Biden would have been thrown out. If you know that. And he's still in there now. That Weiss or Weiss, however you want to pronounce his name.
Yeah.
But he got appointed by Garland, and there he is again as a special prosecutor. Now they're arguing a technicality. Hunter's lawyer, is he really a special prosecutor or not? This Abby Lowe, I think his name is. I guess he's one of the brightest lawyers in the country, supposedly, for the Democrats. But we'll see what happens. This thing could all been all covered up had that judge not asked the question, was there another deal in that 2nd charge? And he had to be honest and say,
that judge,
yes, it was.
yeah. And I think that Judge, Frank, she was a Trump appointee. I think that judge was a Trump appointee and picked up on all that. So good for her for doing so. And Hunter, I think the country is going to see the corruption. And I'm glad that laptop came out. I don't know if you've seen the videos. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen that laptop come out from his that's unbelievable video in here. He had major crack addiction, smoking. He's had crack pipe with the guns. He's a danger. He could have been dangerous to his father. The guy was and he was sleeping with his sister-in-law. I'm not sure if you know that. His sister, wife, he was sleeping with her. And I'm not sure if it was just before, and he was dying from brain cancer. That's sleazy within the family to be doing all that stuff. What's going on? And she panicked when she found the gun, and she threw it in the garbage can that there in Wilmington, Delaware, in a shopping center. Right. So there's a lot of stuff in this story and a lot of problems. This whole Biden family and his brother, Joe Biden's brother, is also involved in this too. So the whole Biden criminal enterprise it's going to be more coming out with this, which I found it fascinating.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to throw in, let me close this in, Bill, then I'll let you wrap up. The October surprise never happened, because if it would have happened, Trump would be in the president's office, in the Oval Office today, because the FBI never released all that stuff about the laptop, Ignacio.
That's right. Yeah, they held all that. So it's a lot of interesting things going on here too. So I know there's a side story here, Bill, but I saw there's a congresswoman, a senator from Tennessee here. I think Mashburn, is it? I can't remember her name right now off the top of my head, but she's getting subpoenas out there. And Epstein, I know you were talking about that. She wants to get the flight logs and Epstein. And I know you wrote the book about that and everything's going on. All the people that were involved and who was part of that sick little circle of his. And she wants to get that out there. So that might be breaking out soon. I know you wrote the book. You had inside information a little bit with Epstein, what happened there, Bill. So watch out for that. That might be coming around also again. Who else was involved in the sick little circle Epstein had? So watch out for that.
Some of the most powerful people on the planet Earth are involved. And so that's why it's been suppressed for so long. And a lot of people that talk about it end up dead.
Interesting things. Interesting time. What else do you want to talk about, Bill? A little bit about the mass shooting at the UNLV campus. Another one, another week, another shooting. Shocking out there. This guy's name was Anthony Polito, and he was a professor. This is how sad and sick some of these get, and it's mental health issues. It's not the weapon. It's the mental health crisis we have here. His world was caving in on him. When I was reading about and looking at different articles here. He was getting eviction notices, right? He was getting denied for work. He couldn't find satisfaction. He was getting angry at the faculty at UNLV. He was a professor at Eastern Carolina University, North Carolina. He was tenure professor. He was teaching there for years. But then you start talking about the students, there were red flags in there. There were issues with him, how he acted. He was a very strange, he was almost like what they dubbed him the nutty professor now, obviously. So what happened here? He snapped, and he had over 11 magazines fully loaded. He had his weapon, pistol. I'm not sure if it was a Taurus or what he had. And he went in there, and he went to where the faculty was in the building, killed 3, injured another one, and was going to go to the student center and kill more students there. But police intervened and stopped him, killed him right there in his tracks right there, that's the way you want to see things happen. Not like Uvalde, Texas. You wait 77 minutes. Not like Parkland we talked about where they wait outside and the shooter kills the people. That's the way things have to happen. Active shooter training is you can't wait for the SWAT team. You can't wait for the SWAT team to show up. 2 or 3 of you have to address the shooter immediately. And that's the way it should have happened. They saved countless lives by doing so. And that was the right thing. So that was the right thing to see way to do it, not like what we saw in Uvalde, which is horrible. I don't know if you saw that video, Frank, but 77 minutes waiting outside while the gunman kills those students, executes them and the teacher. It's heartbreaking.
Let me interject
wow.
this. Now, Frank, his conviction was so minor and his time so short. What was it, over 20 years ago already, Frank? And I think you want to be in a position where you become a legal gun owner again. Ignacio, Ignacio, if there's any way,
absolutely, Bill.
If there's any way
We've
to
got
do
a-
it, if there's any way to do it, maybe you talk to Ignacio right now.
But was it a federal conviction or was it a state conviction,
State.
Frank? Oh, a state conviction. So you have to go
State.
to your governor. Is you have a Republican governor?
Yes.
All right. Well,
We're in the process right now. We're in the process right now. We've got a hearing set up for my expungement hearing.
okay.
And I've been out for a lot of years now, never been in trouble. I was never in trouble before I went in, and I never got in trouble when I got out. And all these years I've been out. And the third special prosecutor in my case is appealing my expungement. And we're going to get into this week. We've got a hearing Thursday. And I think his main motive, it's just my belief, his main motive for appealing the hearing, because he's mentioned in my book. And it is what it is. And I said what I said, and we wrote what we wrote. He just has a big ego. And so he's going to stop that after all these years, never being in trouble, keep running my business and doing what I have to do. So we're going to see how this rolls out.
Hopefully you get your rights restored because you can't vote yet either. Can you vote, Frank, or no?
Yes, I can in Ohio.
So you get your rights to vote, but not the rights to possess. So you can't have any weapons or ammunition yet.
That's correct.
Okay. So you're going to have to wait a little bit. Some states, they make it impossible. Even if it's a white collar, you were convicted only of a white collar crime. You were not convicted of a crime of.
That's correct.
Okay. And Bill, you're working on yours too, trying to get yours because you weren't convicted of any crimes of violence.
But my record's extensive, so I doubt there's any.
His is going to be, and his is multi-states, which is more complicated. And yours is just one state many years ago, Frank, many years ago. Okay. All right. So you have a better chance, obviously. So that's in my opinion, just me and my professional opinion. I retired law enforcement 26 years. People who are nonviolent, who've done time, who did their time in the community, and now they haven't been convicted of anything. It's important to be able to defend yourself and defend your family. Not have the ability to do so. That's not right. That's not right. And that's just my opinion. That's obviously every state handles it a little differently, but I think it should let you have your rights back so you'll be able to defend and do so, especially if you haven't done anything in so many years. Obviously, if you're a repeat offender, that's a different situation, but that's not your case. So
let me ask
you
you
things to talk about. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. You guys are both really deeper into politics than I am. The right to vote in a federal election, for example, for president. I'm currently filming in Indiana. So is it to vote in a federal election state dependent if I, as a convicted felon, can be allowed to vote? Or is it federal law governing whether I can vote in a federal election? How do I vote?
It's each state. See, the states have the power over the election process. And what happened with COVID, the Senate convinced the states to use universal ballots. The difference between universal ballots and absentee ballots, this needs to be explained. It's very simple. Absentee ballots, you have to have voter identification and voter verification. Universal ballots don't need anything. So you can send out whoever you want to that are on the rolls or off the rolls out, and they can vote. And that's why Biden supposedly got more votes than any president in the history. And supposedly he was only out 5 times campaigning at a drive-in setting, maybe 5 times with 150 cars, 100 cars, whatever. How did he get all those votes? It's called ballot harvesting. Ignacio, I'm sure you understand a little bit about that. And so that's how the corruption is. And I wouldn't doubt that they're leaning toward, again, bringing up this virus again to put the lockdowns in place so they could do the same thing with the universal ballot versus the upright and honest way is through the absentee ballots.
Now, for the YouTube censors here, for YouTube company, these opinions are the opinions of the guest, not of myself or of YouTube. Although I do share the opinions, they're just our opinions. And because a lot of times, Frank, when you start complaining about election and elections.
Oh, forget it. COVID and elections, a bad combo.
Yeah, they suspended my channel once because Trump's attorney was on here and he said the election was stolen in Georgia and he gave the reasons why. And they suspended my channel for 2 weeks. So this is a news broadcast. entertainment purposes only, and the opinions of the guests are not necessarily my own or the opinions of YouTube. So I'm just making sure that I put that out there so I don't get my channel shut down.
So in essence, he has to go to Indiana to see if he can get his rights back to vote, right, Frank?
Who's that? Who are you talking about?
Me.
Bill.
Who are you talking about?
Bill, for him to get his rights.
It's whatever the state requires. Yeah.
State requirement. So Bill, for you
Indiana,
at the end,
yes.
it's state requirement for you in Indiana then, so if you can vote. So well, you'll see
It's
what happens.
amazing. It's amazing. I could run for president as a convicted felon, but in some states I
can't
couldn't
vote.
vote for myself.
That's something else. Well, there's a lot interesting there. And then of course the last debate.
What's that, Frank?
In Ohio, I just wanted to in Ohio, we have that right. I was able to vote in the state issues as well as the federal issues. So each individual state has their own determination on voter qualifications.
So case by, so you have to check out Indiana, Bill, see how it goes there. Yeah. And of course, the last debate, since we're talking about debates and stuff going in politics here, it was kind of a joke because of course Trump hasn't gone to any debates. So it's like the varsity team against the JV team. And you had those four, and you had Nikki Haley, Vivek Ramaswamy. They're going back and forth. It's getting nasty. Chris Christie has to get in there to defend Nikki Haley out there. And DeSantis is smart. He plays it cool. He just states the facts and lets them go at each other.
Yep.
But he's lost some money from the super PACs, and it looks like Nikki Haley has done well on that end. So we're gonna see how Nikki Haley. We'll see how she does in South Carolina, because that's the third state there against Trump. If she can take South Carolina, then maybe it'll be interesting. If Trump is pretty much is a route already, taking Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina, moving on, it's over, like 2016 all over again.
Part of the debates, I didn't catch the whole thing, but the part that I did see was where, what's his name? Gavin Newsom was telling DeSantis, why is it you don't like gay people and you talk so disparagingly of them? And I'm like, he's never said anything disparaging about them. Democrats just blatantly lie, and the people follow them believe it because it's said. It doesn't make it true because he said that. I don't like DeSantis, but he's never said anything disparaging about gay people.
Yeah, he'll be better. I know you have the reason why you told us before, but he'll be a better president, no doubt, than Joe Biden. 100% better than Joe Biden. So we're better. Hopefully, we get something with the Republican Party and nothing. Anybody but Joe Biden. If it's RFK Jr. or whatever, Joe Manchin, hopefully, but we'll see what happens. I think there's too many people that don't like Trump. I just don't see him able to win with so many. He has his base, but then outside his base is not there. So I don't know. We'll see how the numbers play out. It's not going to be a 1-on-1 this time. You're going to have RFK Jr. in there, and then you may have Joe Manchin, and you may have some other people in there too now. So it's going to be a whole different set of dynamics than it was in 2016.
Frank, are you going to run for office again if you get your expungement?
Not until we get the corruption cleaned up.
Oh, here we go again.
Were you mayor? And what position did you have?
Ignacio, I want to tell you one thing. I don't know how much we could use as a barometer in the polls with South Carolina, because remember that one candidate was the governor of South Carolina, so she should do fairly well there. So I wouldn't jump so fast to say if she does good over there. That's probably to be expected. If she doesn't do well, that's really would tell a story the other side.
Yeah, if Trump takes South Carolina, that's why I brought it up. Nikki Haley being the governor of South Carolina, then that's a big problem. This is a route. This is 2016 all over again. It's a big route. The only way it's going to be competitive, Chris Christie said he has to take New Hampshire. Christie has to take New Hampshire, right? Iowa, I think the number is pretty big now. We're seeing Iowa. Trump, there's no way these guys can catch him in Iowa. But New Hampshire looks like he's competitive there. We'll see what happens. And then South Carolina, she could take it, and we'll see. But if he takes it all, then it's over. And then people are going to start looking at RFK Jr. And then I think Manchin definitely gets in, because he's not going to run again. He's going to let the Republicans take the Senate, it looks like, because he said, you know what, it's a red state. He was a Democrat, but now he's going to leave the Democratic Party. Another one is leaving. He's going to be an independent now. And he says, I'm not going to run again, but he is going to be no labels party. So we'll see how that turns out. It's going to be interesting. That's going to be an interesting point there.
Hey, Frank, Ignacio was wanting some clarification.
I think the next guy.
Ignacio was asking for some clarification about what office
Say that again.
you held. Was asking you for clarification on what office you held and a little bit about what happened.
I was a county commissioner. It's the first office that I ran for. It's the only office that I ran for. I ran the first time not knowing anything about politics, just with family and friends. The second time, an issue came up about the commissioner's office, and I campaigned for about a year and a half. And it was awesome. What a campaign we put on, and we knocked out the head of the snake, which in the Democratic community is the party chairman throughout the United States. And he had tentacles all the way to Washington, D.C., as well as Columbus. And our congressman at the time, Ignacio, was getting 90% of the vote, very popular. He ran against the party chairman and got beat. And we come into office, me and this young city councilman. There's 2 seats. David Engler was his name. There's 2 seats on the board of commissioners. He ran for the other seat. We got in. We were on the same page about cleaning up corruption. So we took a poll. The most negative name in our community, in our county, was that party chairman. But I found out the system, how the party chairman was able to stay in office. And that's an interesting story for another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Unless
That
you'd
sounds
like
like
to hear it now.
No, we'll do another story of that. That's excellent.
Well,
and then I'd like to hear one day how it ended up spinning against you and you end up getting convicted and incarcerated. That's interesting there also. We can do that another time too. We'll talk about Frank. There's always plenty to talk about here.
Good.
And you may not know also, I retired about 2 years ago, 26 years, 21 with ATF, 5 with Customs, most of my career in Florida between Tampa and Miami. And then I finished my career in headquarters. I was promoted ATF headquarters. That's why I live in Virginia and everything else. I got to see a lot how things work behind the scenes, worked a lot with the director's office and everything else. So that was fascinating there. Retired. And then I started writing books. In the last 2 years, I've written 77 books that I published on Amazon. One, of course, my book here, ATF Undercover, my autobiography, and I do politics, true crime, travel, etc. And now we're working on a TV series. I've also now done screenplays. I've written a couple of them where it's going to be picked up now. Broken Crowns, hopefully, will be done maybe in a year or so. A lot of interesting things. I've met a lot of people. I've done over 200 some shows on YouTube and Rumble and everywhere else. And
don't forget your history
fascinating
channel.
Meeting people for sure.
Don't forget the History Channel.
That's right. I'll be on the History Channel. Gangland. Have you ever watched the show Ganglands, Frank? Or I know Bill, you have, right? Yeah. It's going to become Gangland Chronicles. It's going to be a sequel.
I haven't saw that, but I haven't seen that. But I can tell one thing. You are very knowledgeable, Ignacio, and I enjoyed listening to you because I'm learning from you. And as Bill will tell you,
Thank you, man.
I ask a lot of questions. I've done that in life because I figure that's how you learn is by asking questions.
Oh, I'm always
a
learning.
Fighter. I tell people at the end of this, I would do it again what I did. I would do it again what I did because I'm against corruption. Even though I didn't like where I went, it wasn't fun, but I got through it. The Lord had his hand on me, and I know that because I walked through that fire. And when I got out, I recognized when I got out that he had his hand on me. But it's a great time to be in what I and Bill are doing, because this is the top subjects going on that Bill has brought to our attention and to the public's attention, and we can speak on it because we've went through it. We've got the personal experience. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. A lot of people are afraid to come out. But it is what it is. The truth's the truth. You can't change it.
Yeah, let me ask you something real quick here, Frank. Where did you do your time in? Frank, where did you do your time? Bill?
Frank, where did you do your time? Ignacio was asking you.
Cleveland.
Oh, Cleveland.
I started out in Cleveland, and then I ended up in Belmont County down near West Virginia, and then I got transferred back to the Youngstown State Facility.
Oh, state facility. That's right. You did state time. Gotcha. State time could be a little rougher too. Federal, you look at, as long as you're not in the federal pen, but you're more in one of these federal camps, it could be a lot easier. But state prison could be rough also. You see the horror stories out there, and Bill can talk about that. I did interviews in there, but I couldn't imagine living in that, and the food and the conditions and all that stuff. It's not easy. And you get the wrong roommate, or bunkmate, whatever you want to call them. That's bad news right there.
Plenty of those.
You'll find this is that all 3 places that I visited, when I got checked into headquarters and came out into the prison lingo that Bill understands, in the yard, and I don't mean your front yard, and they're all waiting for me outside at each 3 places. And I got the same thing. What amazed me the most about this, Bill, is the information that they're able to receive from the outside world and also what comes in from the outside world. And they made it very clear to me at each place I went to. First, they startled me by saying, when I walked out into that yard, and the leader of the pack, whoever was representing them, and I tell this one in West Virginia because I make people laugh when I say this, there's this huge circle out in the yard. And to make it a little interesting, I said, I walk out and they parted like the Red Sea. And there was a place for me to walk in that circle. But each place told me the same thing. First of all, they said, how are you doing, Commish? You know who I am. But they also said this, and I appreciate this. It's very fortunate for you that we found out from the outside that you were not, and I accentuate this, and I thank God, that I was not, Ignacio will get a kick out of this, that I was not, again, a police commissioner, or I would have had a very rough time in there. And if you mess with little kids or children, a severe price to pay. The guards turn the cheek and walk out, and they take care of business. So I hope I told you something you knew, Ignacio, and Bill is aware of that, but I'm sure your listeners don't. But I'm very grateful that they found out I was not a police commissioner.
If not, if not, Frank, you would have to be in isolation. I know Bill did some time in isolation, and a lot of guys who were prior law enforcement or what have you, you got to be in isolation. You can't be out and about.
I was a severe escape risk. That's why I was in 4 years isolation.
Nice. That's rough.
Yeah, 4 years in almost complete solitary.
I wasn't in isolation, but I could tell you this, Ignacio. In the second place I went to, I'm supposed to be in the camp for minimum security. They put me in general population, and my eyes really got big in there.
I bet you're there in a white collar crime, right? Or what did they convict you of?
Yes.
And some of these guys are in general population.
I think,
aren't they like violent gang? You're involved with like gang members out there, murderers, killers, kidnappers, all those people.
I know that. You're absolutely right.
How does someone survive?
I think they were messing with me and maybe testing me. But I made it through. I told you, by God's hand, he walked me through those fires.
That's good, man.
The whole time they have you in general population with all the violent guys and the gang members, you're calling your lawyer, hey, they got me misclassified. Get me the hell out of here.
Really?
Wow.
Hey, Bill, I just want you to know that, I don't know if you know this or not, Bill, Ignacio might not know this. When you go into, I believe it's in Ohio, I don't know if it's in other states, but when you go into those institutions, if you're on medication, they're required to provide it for you. And I saw something that I had to take my eyes off it very quickly. I was told not to look at the site that I saw. It was the wrong side here. I was seeing a person playing volleyball that was taking some kind of medication to help her look like a female.
Oh wow!
And I don't know what you call it. And I don't know what you call it. It was.
They're not allowed to deny it to them. If they're trying to be that and transition, they're not allowed.
Transition, transgender.
Some states are even letting them get married now in prison.
Wow. And I heard the food. And I heard the food is awful. Frank, isn't the food awful in prison?
Food is food. It depends on how you cook it. They just don't. They don't. It's not the best. But the thing I didn't like about that is they give these guys, and Bill will tell you, elementary school or middle school or a high school tray. A tray, and that's all they get on them trays. So it's very little. Therefore, a lot of theft goes on in the kitchen. And that's how I found out why I kept getting picked for that duty, because I kept asking. You said everybody takes a turn. Now they got 3 shifts, and I kept getting called for 2 shifts. So I asked a good guy in there that had went through a lot, but he was well respected. And I said, why are they calling me all this time to keep going in there? He says, because they trust you. You're not going to steal any food out of there. Probably what I did may have helped me, but I didn't do it to help me. I did it out of my heart, out of sympathy. So when I had opportunities to put extra scoops on some trays, especially for the big boys, I did that gleefully. And they never said thank you or anything. I just got a real little nod and maybe a little wink. And I just knew that it was appreciated because I know they needed it. So that's what I want to tell you. It's their own world there, and they control everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. You don't want to mess around with the big boys out there. That's for sure, especially when they have a history of violence. It's like, here's a little extra scoop for you, and we're all good now.
They remember the craziest things. A friend of mine said in New York, this gangster from Canada was doing time, and when he used to get his commissary, he'd buy a few extra sodas and give them to keep people on the yard. He goes, look how stupid these guys are. I can buy their loyalty for a soda.
Little things go a long way. Little things go a long way in that world. That's for sure.
All right, guys, we're gonna wrap this show up, and we're gonna try to get it out. We covered some interesting topics. Frank, we did have a little bit of a lag, so we are working on that. We're gonna try to get everybody stepping up the game here. Ignacio, thank you for
always, bro.
I knew you and Frank would get along good. He has the political thing in common. He's a very smart guy.
So. No, we have good last comment. I look forward to doing another show and maybe hearing how things, what went bad on with your case and what happened there. That's interesting there. And it's good talking to you, Frank. And hopefully you guys get more diving in my books too. I've done quite a bit, especially if you like politics, Frank. You like some of my books and my autobiography and true crime and a little bit of everything in there. And I know Bill has listened to quite a few of my stuff, and so has Mary, and they've enjoyed it. And we've done a lot of shows together. I think we've done over, I'll say 50 shows at least. And I've been a guest on shows from all over the world too, from Australia to London, Canada, you name it. Now we're doing more things.
William Oldfield, right?
Yes.
So shout out to him and Bill Crooks and all his wonderful
Yes.
supporters. So Oldfield gets in touch with me almost every day, and he said, "Man, I love the show you just did with Ignacio." And then I told him about you, Frank, and this guy here he's pretty big in this community. And he says, "Oh, I know all about Frank." He said, "I'm from Ohio originally." He said, "Unfortunately, some of my older family members still think he's guilty because you got to read the book and know the story." He goes, "No, I know this guy is pretty big in the podcast world." And he said he knows you were framed.
Who was that famous congressman from Ohio that was corrupt? Traficante?
Traficant.
Traficant?
All right, tell us your connection to him, Frank, because you do have a family connection.
Yeah. He was everything in high school. He was Mr. Everything. He was my idol when I was in grade school. The story goes, big Catholic high school. There's two of them in our area. The coach went into the Hall of Fame of coaches at the Cardinal Mooney High School. And the story goes that it's 4th and 1, no more time. They got time for one play. That Hall of Fame coach sends in the play. Jim Trafficant sent him back out, called his own play, 4th and 1 on the 1 yard line, and throws a touchdown pass.
Oh, wow.
And then he goes to the University of Pitt, made All-American. From there, he went into the pros in the NFL, had knee surgery, I believe. Came out, the people in positions that could appoint somebody, they picked him to be what we would call today the drug czar of Mahoning County. He was very intelligent. He had 2 degrees, and I believe his master degree was in psychology.
Okay.
And so he gets out, like I said, then he ran against the party machine, and he lost. We don't know how that happened. Of course, they probably cheated, of course, but he ends up running against the machine, politics, against that party as a Democrat, and he becomes sheriff. And if you ever remember a show years ago, Bill and Ignacio, Walking Tall, it was about Buford Pusser carrying a big stick. He exemplified that. He actually got on the back of a pickup truck with a bullhorn on Saturdays, and it would say, "If you need a strike settled, don't call me until you can't get any further." He had connections with the union bosses. They would call him. He would come out and settle strikes. But one of those stories I'll tell you he was famous for doing this over and over. He would meet. He said, "I only want to meet with the people that have the final decisions, the final say, whether they're going to stay out on strike or they're going to negotiate and go back to work." Mm-hmm. And they're usually out in front of a big hotel that's going to have a conference room and everything. When he got done speaking to everybody with the bullhorn, he goes into the conference room, got everybody in there, introduces himself and says, "We're not leaving here till we get a settlement, because I was told this is the last meeting we're going to have." And I believe that. So it's about 11:30. He goes, "I'm going to order in lunch. And if we don't have a settlement by dinner time, I'm going to order in dinner. So I'm going to tell you ahead of time what the menu is going to be. And on the menu, we're going to have beans for lunch and beans for dinner." You get it, guys?
Yeah.
Try to get it over with.
The place, the room, the conference rooms would be filled with gas, a lot of gas, and they would want to make a settlement happen real quick. He was a character.
Quick deal.
But he got settlements done.
So what happened? Ultimately, he gets
after he did that, he decides to run for Congress against the system again, against the party candidate, and wins. He wins and gets in. And after a while, one of the mob boss's wife, when she realized after the statute of limitations is to claim somebody dead, sent the FBI with a tape of her husband in her basement with his henchman and the congressman. Next thing you know, he's indicted. That makes big news, not only in our area, but around the country.
Yeah.
The trial is held in Cleveland, Ohio, Bill. He represents himself against the feds and beats them. Big news. Some people thought he could walk on water. We know that can't happen. That was big. And in the meantime, when he gets back in office, he's beating up on the local FBI director in town, who was the leader of the other FBI agents from Cleveland because he was familiar with the area. This is his territory. Anytime he got to make any kind of statement on TV, a press conference, everybody flocked to hear him. And one of his things that he was famous for was beating up on that FBI director's father. Is what we call back in the day, maybe still today, Ignacio, a constable, which is like a small borough, smaller than a township. The guy had a squeaky clean reputation. I guess was a good man, the father of the director. And trafficking's telling the public how corrupt he is. He's a thief. He's no good. And this FBI can't say a word. He's got to keep his mouth shut. And one day, a friend of mine came up to see me and says, would you believe I'm in the locker room of the local and I see that FBI director in there? And I said to him, you're still here. I thought you were going to retire years ago. He says, I'm not going to retire till I got traffic and bound and gagged. They got him the second time around. It's interesting, Bill, about elections and and jury selection. They kept out anybody from his district to be in the jury pool because he was so popular. I don't know how they did that because we always thought you had
like
a jury of your peers.
It was He was like John Gotti, a victim of his own big mouth.
Yeah, or Dwayne Davis, which I was talking about with Tupac Shakur. He pretty much talked himself into jail 27 years later with the murder and being out there and bragging about it. Loose lips sink ships, man. He ran his mouth too much, and that was the end of that one. So I'm gonna look more in that. That's interesting story. Corrupt. Is he still? He's not alive anymore. Is he already passed away, or is he still around?
Passed away. Some believe it's a conspiracy theory, and others say it was an accident. You'd have to check it out. I could give you my opinion. It don't matter.
Something else we'll talk about. That sounds good.
I'll tell you what, you guys all know, my fans know, I just came back from New York. We had a great time there covering.
How'd that go, Bill?
Good. Movie premiere for Silent Partners, Ciro DiPaggio, friend of mine. He's been putting out movies. Yep. And I was able to network with a lot of other executives, filmmakers, producers, people with money, people that are really putting together shows. So I made some really good connections in New York, and I'll discuss a lot of that with you guys privately. As I brought some of that to your attention already. So things are looking up on many fronts right now.
Sounds good.
Bill,
it's a good show, Bill. Excellent.
Good, Bill.
Yes, Frank?
I wish you the best of luck. I wish you the best of luck with those ventures. But I can tell you this right now. This is my first encounter with you like this with Ignacio. I think the three of us would make a hell of a talk show program. We would have people call in from around the country because we could handle ourselves.
That's my goal. That's my goal for every Friday evening, 4-hour show. But in your case, we have to get you a faster internet connection. All right.
I think it will be a good show for sure. We have plenty of stories and plenty to talk about and lots of experience. So I think and people really love politics, true crime. When you mix, and sometimes one and the same, and you see that. Unfortunately, it's one and the same, and we can bring all different perspectives in there. I find it fascinating that how much time you guys did, or at least Bill did, and what your stories are. Because I only visited to do interviews and do different things. I couldn't imagine spending my life and how people survive. And I remember we talked to Matt Cox. Shout out to Matt Cox, and he told me how he had to survive. And everybody gives me their spin how they survived, and you did the same thing. So I think there's plenty to talk about. For sure. I like the idea, Frank.
Frank, I don't think you've ever heard me say this. We do a lot of crime prevention stuff here, and like active shooter, and how Ignacio believes like people who should or allowed to carry should carry, trained teachers and all this stuff. And you believe the same thing, which is why you want to get your ability to carry back. Now, that may not ever happen for me, but I will say this. I was on the other side of this. I was actively committing crimes and doing burglaries all across the United States. And I will say this for my audience. There's nothing that puts more fear into the heart of somebody in my situation than going into a house, not knowing who's in there and if they're armed. So for me, an unarmed person would be better if I was going to encounter somebody. My objective was to avoid people altogether. But if there was somebody home, my biggest nightmare was that they would be armed. So I could get all the guns I want because guess what? I was stealing them from houses. I was getting them from gun shows. Friends of mine they would have people doing straw man purchases. So I was able to get whatever I wanted, living as a criminal, living as a fugitive, living as somebody with felony convictions. There's nothing that stopped me from getting guns. What concerned me was an armed citizen who knew how to use one
That's
and
bad news.
trying to
That's bad news
interrupt
for
my
you.
day of my day of stealing their stuff. I will say that it's very beneficial for citizens that be armed from the point of view
No,
of somebody who was a
I,
criminal.
I've been saying that for years and years, and not just for burglars, but I've done books also, Frank, you may know, on psycho killers, serial killers, and night stalkers, people who prey on those they know who are weak, who are vulnerable. And I always say, keep the lights on around your house. Trim down basic things can make your life a lot safer. Some people don't like to close the windows, but if you close the windows, you make yourself a little light. Put the lights, trim the bush, even put signs around. You have dogs around your house. Bad dog. Put those signs all around. Even if you don't have a security system, they're expensive. Put signs that you do have a security system. Make it that much harder. Play the game with these people. They'll look somewhere else. They see signs around your house that says security or dogs, or you leave a big bowl somewhere, a big one, not a little bowl. Leak a big bowl. They'll feel like, you know what? I'm not gonna mess around with these people. Those are little things. I think Bill can talk about that.
Yeah, I have a book coming out about protecting yourself from burglary and home invasion, and Ignacio is going to probably do a forward or something on it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I have to polish it up and get it out. One of
Sounds
the
good.
things I like that I used to keep on my door in New York for crime prevention, it was a little back in those days. It was just typed on the back of I think it was like a back of a business card or something. It said, "Dear burglars, I may or may not be home. However, I have something in here that guarantees you won't be coming out alive." It was just psychological warfare. I had no nefarious device, but it just made people think, wow, do I really want to come in here? He's thinking about what he's going to do to somebody who does come in.
For sure.
A lot of it's psychological warfare.
Sounds good, Bill.
All right, Frank, thank you again for joining us. We appreciate you. Everybody, Frank's Framed Innocence is available on his website and on Amazon. I will put the links in the description. His fight for justice, being targeted like Trump's being targeted the same way. He went through this over 20 years ago, and the man's still trying to clear his name. So Ignacio, retired ATF, his books, ATF Undercover, brand new book about Tupac Shakur and the murder. Finally, there's finally an arrest, and my books are here as well. So we're going to be back at least one more time before the holidays set in. And thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you guys for being back.
Thank you, guys. All right. Thank you.
All right, Frank.
You gonna hit end record?
Thank you too, Bill. Thank you. God bless both of you guys.
All right.
Thank you, Frank.
In the shadows of high society lurked a predator disguised as a gentleman. This is the chilling true story of Robert Durst, the wealthiest serial killer in American history. Written by William Steele, a man who stood face to face with the monster, this book unveils Durst's darkest secrets. From bizarre and horrendous acts to a drug-fueled underworld of depravity, William Steele witnessed it all. Hear the stories of those who escaped, the harrowing tales of survival from Durst's clutches, and the tragic fate of Susan Berman, a mafia princess forever silenced. This isn't just a story, it's a warning, a journey into the mind of a psychopath and into the heart of darkness. Sex and the Serial Killer, My Bizarre Times with Robert Durst, by William Steele and co-authored with Gary Greenberg. The book that rips the lid off the true face of a killer. Available now on Amazon.
Framed Innocence, a true crime memoir by Frank Lordi. It was 1996. I was living the American dream. Little did I know it was about to turn into the American nightmare. To be sure, God had blessed me with a wonderful family and a successful business. My decision to seek public office in 1992 and a second term in 1996 met with great success. I was serving as one of 3 local county-wide commissioners in Youngstown, Ohio. During that time, the officials serving alongside me were committed to taking on the corruption and criminal activity involved within the political machine in Mahoning County, Ohio. My colleagues and I, along with many good people dedicated to truth and honesty in government, were successful in removing these corrupt office holders and now looked forward to a new day in the life of a government dedicated to serving its constituents. However, there would be a price to pay, in currency printed with the blood of revenge, all powered by a politically motivated doomsday machine, created and orchestrated by these defeated and corrupt enemies of the people, that was turned loose upon those that spoke truth to power. This revenge machine would challenge my very existence and my beliefs in the criminal justice system in this country. Let me take you behind the scenes as you witness this battle of good versus evil, so it may serve as a warning to Americans everywhere that our democracy and government must never be taken for granted, and that we, the people, must be eternally vigilant lest we lose the most cherished prize of this country, freedom. 911. I recall driving along a state highway one day on my way to the county courthouse to perform my duties as an elected Mahoning County Commissioner. I remember on that afternoon I received a 911 page. I pulled off the side of the road and called my secretary. She told me that 2 gentlemen were requesting to see me. One of the 2 men took the phone and spoke to me. "Mr. Lordi, we want you to come down to your office and speak with us, in confidence and off the record. We want you to tell us your side of the story and to cooperate with us in this investigation." This was not a good sign. As I entered the office, 2 men in suits were inside. They flashed their badges, FBI. These agents greeted me in a proper manner. However, within minutes, they proceeded to play good cop, bad cop. I should have called a lawyer at that point, but I had nothing to hide. What could possibly go wrong? I had faith in our criminal justice system and believed that as long as you told the truth, you would be just fine. I decided to speak with them alone in a truthful manner and get back to the work of the people. But soon it became clear they were on a mission, one that would attract statewide publicity and promotions, possibly for some of their task force members, all as a result of a high-profile trial with my incarceration being the top prize. It would become a high-stakes game for power and personal freedom. It would involve lies, half-truths, concealment of critical evidence and deception. They wanted me to help them in their quest for glory. They wanted something they thought I could deliver: false testimony leading to the imprisonment of their political targets. Should I cooperate and save my own skin at the price of my soul, or tell them that the interview was over, asking them to leave my premises? I am Frank Lordi, and this is my story. A true crime story about my having been the target and the victim of a malicious prosecution, and the suffering that I endured as a result of being wrongfully convicted of a crime that I didn't commit. This is framed innocence.
The media never asked the $64,000 question, and that is, why are you forming a Mahoning County Fraud Task Force to clean up public corruption now when you're going out of office? Well, it's because they had an ulterior motive. It was to get back at those that were responsible for their demise. 14 to 16 counties with 3 township trustees and elected clerks, so you got probably maybe 75 or so elected officials. And then you have the 4 cities with the 7 councilmen, president of council, mayor. So let's say we have over 100 people that could be looked at for possible corruption. And of course they only zeroed in on 4. Well, I wonder why.
Could it be that the four played a large role in them losing their jobs? Absolutely. We're putting a lot of pressure on a lot of people and a lot of government, specifically at the courthouse and city hall for documents. A lot of time and a lot of money expended. I'm down here on my own without a lawyer. I'm giving you this information freely. And he says, well, we know you know some of the individuals that we're investigating, and we would like you to. And as soon as he said that, I knew where he was going. So that kind of really upset me. So I pushed myself away from the desk, and I got up and I went over to him and I said, fellas, this interview is over.
Time is critical when you're undercover, where every second counts between life and the barrel of a gun. In ATF Undercover, Ignacio Esteban recounts the pulse-pounding reality of infiltrating America's most dangerous criminal underbellies. From the depths of violent gangs to the web of international arms dealers, he risked everything. His mission, to disarm the armed and dismantle the wicked. These are not just stories. They are battles fought in the silent corners of society, victories won for peace, chronicled by the man who lived it. He has looked into the eyes of evil, walked the fine line of morality, all to make a difference, to make our communities safer. Join me, William Steele, as we venture into the heart of Ignacio Esteban's harrowing journey. This is not just a tale of danger, it's a tribute to unsung heroes. For the brave, the curious, and the protectors of our nation, ATF Undercover is your call to witness the true saga of American heroism. Feel the adrenaline, embrace the courage, and live the sacrifice. ATF Undercover by Ignacio Esteban, available now. The story of a lifetime awaits.